building a common prosperity. We see it often in Europe, we see it in other parts of the world, but in South Asia, so far, there hasn't been as much cooperation as there ideally should be. So what holds us back? Is there a way forward which navigates past the various differences our countries have? To talk about this, we're joined at the World Economic Forum for this very special conversation by the Minister of State for Foreign Affairs in Pakistan, Hina Rabbani Khar. With us also is one of India's most respected spiritual gurus, head of the Art of Living Foundation, Sri Ravishankar. And I want to introduce Krishan Balendran, chairperson of John Keel's group. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to start by asking the Minister, if at all you believe it is possible for the governments of South Asia to come together and find ways of achieving a shared prosperity. If not, what do you think, ma'am, holds us back?
Okay, thank you, Rahul. And I did warn you that you'd like your session to be a happier session and shouldn't start with me. And you still did not take the warning. Nevertheless, look, it's been 20 years I've been in politics. It's been more than 10 years. I've been holding, close to my heart this file and any regional file, while in office and then outside of the office also, because once you are interested in this. And allow me to say that I started working on this file of regional integration, cooperation, as an exceptionally optimistic person, because I believe that my generation, a generation which was born post-wars in the subcontinent, has to have it differently. And when I arrived in India as Foreign Minister of Pakistan, I remember I said that we need to get into a process which is unbreakable, which is unstoppable, and that we have learned our lessons from history, and any sane person or countries would never want to walk back. Now, unfortunately, in 2010, we were sitting at a far better place than we are in 2022 and 23. And 2000 perhaps, we were sitting at a better place than 2010, 1990. So progressively, we have not only added to the basket of problems that we had, we have in fact taken nothing out also, right? And the statesmanship that is required to look at this and to actually convert the dream into a reality was there in bits and pieces and has been completely missing. In fact, what we see is an urgency to allow discord, antagonism to hold sway and to act as if you can change the geography of subcontinent. Act as if one country which you feel hostile towards will not exist, and etc. So I don't want to go deeper into it, but just let me say that, and let's not act, this is a South Asia problem. It's an India-Pakistan problem. Okay, I think about time, let's get real. I've had too many of these conversations to sit through them pretending that we can sneak our way through, through the climate side and through this side and through track 2 and track 1.5, etc. Everything's been tried. What you need is intent, and that intent has to be played out every day through your policy.
Shri, the minister talks about the lack of statesmanship. So when you look as someone looking from outside government at what she calls an India-Pakistan problem, where do you see the absence of statesmanship?
Yeah, people speak what they are. So there is a lack of statesmanship. I see that coming from that side. Why India has no problem with all other neighbors? We have such a good connection with Bangladesh, Nepal, Sri Lanka. All the countries are coming together, and India is very much willing to be part of Pakistan's, growth. And we are so interdependent. When the onion is needed, it comes from Pakistan, and we need something. We need agriculture. Product produced from Pakistan, we welcome. And people-to-people connection, I tell you, even today, there is very good synergy. I see from outside the government arena, there is so much willingness, because we speak the same language, cultures are very similar, and we are connected with music, Bollywood and songs. So I feel this division is artificial in some way, that there is natural connectivity. The food is same. You go to Karachi, and Karachi halwa, you can find it in other places too, and they also eat naan and paneer. And when there is a natural affinity between both the cultures, we need to now move forward, leaving the past behind, go ahead and think about how we can fight with poverty in both the countries. I think that is the way forward.
Mr.
And
Khan,
I feel it is possible.
You spoke of the absence of statesmanship. The Indian Prime Minister displayed statesmanship when he landed in Pakistan to meet former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif. A week after that, there was a major terror attack in India which disrupted whatever efforts were made to try and get India-Pakistan dialogue going. So when you talk about absence of statesmanship, where do you see the problem? Because at least from the perspective of the current government in Delhi, the Prime Minister did try, and India suffered a terror attack soon after.
Okay, listen, I think it is very telling that even non-state people coming from the other side of the border would have a very state perspective on things, as is demonstrated, right? And what is, look, you can say this and I can say we have evidence that the Lahore terror attack has Indian state's hands all over it, which we just found out, have shared with everyone. This will continue to go. We can tell you about Yadav, found in Balochistan, trying to instigate movement against Pakistan, killing people, right? And then you will go and ban the terrorism drum all over the place because it suits the state, right? Eventually, look, statesmanship requires, there was, Guruji has just said that India wants to, has cooperation with everyone. Do you remember the BIMSTEC project? Tell me where it is now, right? You can't deny geography. Why has SAARC not taken off? So there will be always efforts to try and deny geography. It will perhaps not take off. I continue to feel that at the same time, when in the two countries you have statesmen at the same time willing to build a legacy of peace and think beyond their election cycle, this can and will happen. Okay, but I am a realist enough to see that Indian fighter jets entered Pakistani territory because an election had to be won. Okay, I'm realist enough to see that after that, when cameras, international cameras were sent over there, they found nothing but trees where terrorist camps were supposed to be. So we can either choose to continue the same narrative of hostility and yes, we want peace. Of course we have affinity, of course we have affiliation, of course we have tens and thousands of years of common language, culture. All of that has always been true. And what have we done in the last 70 years, right? What I'm saying is I'm not seeing a partner currently in the Prime Minister of India to take this project forward. What I'm saying is I did see a partner in Manmohan Singh to take this forward. What I'm saying is I did see a partner in Prime Minister Vajpayee to take this forward. Those are the realities. I can't deny realities. Prime Minister Modi may be very good for his country, may be very good for dividing the country into Hindus and anyone else. He might have done well for India. And on many other counts he might have done. India is doing very well on many other counts. This is a count, to me, India is not doing very well.
Krishna, you permit me to go to Shri because he has his hand up. That's a very serious charge.
Correct.
Because this is in response to a terror attack where India and Pakistan almost came to war, and she's alleging that this is in the hope of winning an election cycle. Shri.
Listen, the world knows. The entire world knows where terrorism is sprouting. Where was Osama bin Laden? Where was all these other terrorists which have been causing problem in the world? Let's not deny this fact. When you want to shake hands, you must also see that terror is not promoted in some country. You see, that is our issue. India is all willing. Our Prime Minister is, in the very first moment of his oath-taking ceremony, he invited Nawab Sharif ji from Pakistan to be part of his oath-taking. I mean, he has all willingness and he has exhibited not once, many times, he has stretched his hand first whenever Pakistan was in floods and other earthquake and flood problem. It was Prime Minister Narendra Modi immediately jumped and said, we are here to help you. Let's leave behind all the past, and we are here to fight only against poverty, not fight against each other. This he has said it not once but many times. So these allegation that current Prime Minister is not willing to cooperate doesn't make any sense when he has stretched his hands to Bangladesh. He has given some lands to Bangladesh and made such great MOUs were signed with Bangladesh, developmental programs were done with Sri Lanka, with Nepal. I mean, India is all willing. I mean, it plays the role of a big brother, and as a big brother, they don't go into smaller things. They want the entire South Asia to prosper. This is the dream. I know Prime Minister has a dream to make this entire Southeast Asia. SAARC summits are formed for this, and many projects have been put on that. So you cannot say that Prime Minister would have done, this is not doing. I mean, this Prime Minister is really changed the whole scenario.
I agree.
Not just in the world, in India, but in the whole world.
I agree completely.
Krishna
the Prime Minister
Malinda.
has changed the scenario for the region.
When you see the absence of progress on regional cooperation, whenever I've covered a SAARC summit, I find people in Nepal, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh feel very upset about this India-Pakistan wrangling. Is that what holds South Asian cooperation back? The minister said, but what about BIMSTEC? How much progress has BIMSTEC really made? Is there a way around our differences?
Yeah, I think it is disappointing from a business person's point of view that SAARC hasn't really got traction the way some of the other regional economic corporations have done. Again, I don't want to get into the politics of this, but what we've seen is, in Sri Lanka, when the need arises, we have had the support of all the regional countries. And a good example is what happened this year or last year with the economic crisis in the country. We had support from Pakistan, from Bangladesh, and in particular from India, which is the biggest economy in the region. And I think multiple ways of support when the country really needed it. So, at a time when, if you look at the past, there was a feeling in the country that there wasn't enough support from the region, but when the country really needed it, it came in a big way from India in particular throughout this economic crisis in 2022. I think there are ways around. I can't think of any particular ways, but we've seen some very good examples of how the region has got together to help a neighbor.
Minister, India helped out Sri Lanka when the debt trap in Sri Lanka, caused partly by China's influence, required intervention from the neighborhood. Pakistan currently, economically, on a precipice. If the government of India, the Prime Minister who you were just criticizing, were to offer help to aid Pakistan through its economic crisis, would your government accept it, ma'am?
No, listen, let's not be working in euphemisms and making narrative shaping, whether it's from the media or Guruji who does Art of Living. We all have the same, try and put each other down. That's the motto, right? I'm done with it.
No.
Okay, because first of all, Pakistan did not have an earthquake when Prime Minister Modi has been in power. Pakistan had floods, and I do not remember Prime Minister Modi saying anything. I, in fact, remember a very snide remark from a spokesperson of the Indian Foreign Office saying, oh, we have not thought of offering help yet. And I thought that's a very demeaning thing to say to a neighbor where 33 million people have been affected by floods. Thank you very much. I think Pakistan would certainly require much from the world in terms of not only its ability, but the world offers everyone to be able to coalesce whatever we have together towards towards trade, investment, and everything else. But I don't think it'll be fair to say, oh, we're looking towards India to offer help, and will Pakistan take it or not? Because, to be honest, let's not try and not see facts for what they are, right? I think what has happened in Kashmir is not something that you can unilaterally do away with, right? There is a record of the Prime Minister. We do not often like to talk about it, but the fact is that India has decided again and again, on this particular front only, I'm saying this is quite exclusive, because to the rest of the world, India has reached out in a very big way, right? But I think Prime Minister Modi, in my assessment, and Guruji might completely disagree, that's perfectly fine, but Prime Minister Modi has tarnished India's secular credentials, which took India to a very, very big place. And it was a country that we looked up to in that particular place. Its democratic, its institutional structure. As far as the current moves in Kashmir were concerned, I believe it is against the sanctity of the UNSC resolutions for sure, against the commitments that were given in Simla Accord. And anyone who wants to go beyond narratives can look into granular details and sit down with me, and I can explain everything in fine. But if you want to just flash sort of talking points, we can do it till midnight. And
Shri, the charge that somehow India's secular fabric is being torn asunder by the current government. Sitting here at Davos, how do you respond? Because you're seeing what's happening in the country at this moment. How do you respond to the charge from the minister?
Absolutely not. The Muslim women in India are, they are freed from the triple talaq thing, and they are so happy. So there are many developmental programs for minorities that, for minorities in India. It has tripled in the last couple of years. The benefits for minorities are tripled, and it's completely irrational to say from a government where their minorities are in great trouble. The minorities in Pakistan don't have the same rights as the minorities in India. How can someone say even that minorities are suffering in India?
Minister Khar, two things. Shri mentioned the issue of terrorism.
Listen, Rahul, I've done too much of this to want to go into a tit for tat. Let's have a discussion which is a bit more informed.
That's really right.
And we know about Rana Ayub's houses being demolished. We know about Arundhati Roy and what she said about the polity in India. India might be doing many things right. I don't think I would want to, let's talk about perhaps something in which, I'm not going for a tit-for-tat competition with Guruji over here, I'm sorry.
Yeah, obviously, we don't want to get into it. But since you started, I had to conclude somewhere. Let's all work together and see how people, Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas. This was the slogan given by our Prime Minister Modi. Let's all together work and uplift the whole population. Whenever our Prime Minister spoke, he spoke about 138 million people. So he never said only 100 million people or 70 million people of this sect or that sect. He always included everyone. So Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas is the slogan. I think that not just limits to India. It spans across the entire globe. This year we are having G20 meetings in which our main theme is Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. We are one world family. Now, let's put behind all blame games. Let's come together and see how our youth can be skilled better. See, South Asia has a lot of potential. The youth are very resilient. But what is lacking with us is skilling. Our youths are not skilled enough. So skill training, if we can all jointly do it, with all the countries of Southeast Asia, we can excel in the world. Whether it is field of science, art, industry and commerce, I think we have a lot to offer as a group. For example, Bangladesh, they are very good in garment manufacturing and they are almost controlling many parts of the industries there. So we can bring a difference in economy if we move away from this old same tape of, tutu meme in Hindi we said,
No, but you mentioned Bangladesh, and Bangladesh is a good issue because, good example, because if religion was the issue, then India wouldn't be able to build bridges with Bangladesh in the manner that have happened in the last few years.
Not only Bangladesh, Maldives, Rahul. Maldives. It's a Muslim country. And so it's not the religion. We have to go surpass the religious identity, but we have to see the entire continent as a big potential for economic growth.
I think you're questioning a little bit all of our intelligence, Rahul, when you say try and equate what Bangladesh with what's happening within India. opposed to Muslims. Did anyone try to claim that India does not want good relations with any Muslim countries? India has had very good relations.
No, but she raised the issue of terrorism, and you said you didn't want to discuss it. Because if you said that...
Can I, if you allow me?
Yes.
With UAE, with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, we're talking about the internal discourse within India and the Prime Minister Modi making it clear through Citizenship Amendment Act, through what they did in Kashmir, that this country is going to play host to Hindus, and this is going to be a land for the Hindus where their interests are promoted and Muslims are subjugated. You see that coming through articles which have been written in the New York Times, in Time magazine, everywhere else, and what you see is a lot of people within India talking about it and showing it.
Madam,
so as I said, I think I will really seriously have to probably excuse myself from a discussion which is going to be a bit on. What do you want to talk to me about terrorism? Can you speak to me about it? Tell me. What do you ask me a question and I will answer you.
The question is this: is there a possibility that some of the terror organizations that are run from Pakistan are actually acted against by the Pakistani government? For example, someone like a Dawood Ibrahim, a Hafiz Saeed, who continue to live inside Pakistan. If action were taken, there is a genuine desire for peace in India if those terrorists weren't allowed to operate freely on Pakistani soil.
I am all for informed discussions, but I am truly not for uninformed discussions. Do you know where Hafiz Saeed is? Is he roaming around freely? Has he been convicted and arrested? Yes, he has. Your talking points are a bit old, I'm afraid. Right? Can you pause for a second? Lahore, do you know about the Lahore bombing? Do you know that your country's hands were found all over the place and the cell was found within, organizations supported by RAW? Do you know about this person called Yadav, who's in Pakistani custody and is a declared RAW agent propagating violence and terrorism inside Pakistan, and then you go on the UNSC and want to drum the terrorism drum? Because you want to use this as a national, in some ways I think India draws its identity from being against terrorism by propagating terrorism within the region. So to the outside world, against terrorism, within the region.
No, this is the most ridiculous thing I have ever heard.
As I said,
see, you have not even seen what is CAA. And then you're commenting on CAA. CAA is that which says people, minorities who have lost their hope in their countries, when they come to India, we give them, we open our doors, we welcome them. That is what it is about, CAA about. It is nothing to do with the Muslims of India. This has been said so many times, so clearly by our Home Minister. The Indian Muslims don't have to worry about it at all. It doesn't concern them at all. It is only about those minorities who are in 30% in Bangladesh. Now they have become only 10%. And in Pakistan, we don't know how many 10% they were during 1947. Today it's less than 1%. So when people come from Afghanistan, the Sikhs and others, we give them our citizenship. What is wrong in CAA? It has been drummed wrongly, and misinformation campaign has carried out about this, and that is the confusion that arose. But if you see it locally, as a person not from the government but from the spiritual and social sector, I see lots of Muslims are there, Christians are there, Sikhs are there, are living in such harmony, and people are progressing.
Krishna Balendra, do you see a way out of the current fracture, or do you think for years to come, South Asia will be caught in this back and forth, which seems to be intractable?
Well, it's gone on for so long, difficult to put a timeline, but I think the one way that we could find a way out is through economic cooperation. We've got over 1.5 billion people living in South Asia. You've seen manufacturing moving to South Asia with some of the issues around China. And I can't think of a better time to look at opportunities for economic cooperation through which we could possibly resolve some of the political issues. So maybe a starting point across the region would be for us to try to revive SAARC, but just focus on business.
Do you think, Minister Khar, that is possible? For example, during the COVID pandemic, it seemed initially that there was a sense of regional cooperation because the virus knew no national boundaries. we're seeing Balendra suggest that if that could potentially be a way forward, pluck the low-hanging fruit and see if we can find a way forward. Or do you think that's just a businessman being idealistic?
Look, Rahul, you know why I get a little bit, let's just say, pessimistic about this, or a bit, unable to see the same sort of language being rehashed and then reused and then again and again, is because we've been through many cycles, many times. Okay, and I remember the cycle of 2010, which I felt was unique. Why was it unique? Because for the first time since 1965, my government, the Pakistan People's Party government, got together without having a coalition of support anywhere and said that we are going to normalize trade relations with India, because that is how you begin. You have normal relations between two countries, and then you go step by step, go to Sir Creek, then you go to Siachen, and then you go to Kashmir. But anyone who believes that we should just start living as if nothing happened, not possible. We have to all move beyond the wounds, right? I think you would agree. Now, having done that, we started the entire process of normalizing trade with India, MFN status, etc., right? Now, it was all going in a reasonably decent manner. Now, why do I think that we can't start the same process today? Because India went and reneged on its own commitments to the Kashmiris, to Pakistan in Simla Agreement, to UNSC, to Nehru's words. I'm sure as an Indian national, you'd remember his words more than I. The words that he said to the Raja of Kashmir, where he said that I give you this commitment, or to the Kashmiri people, and if India is the state which is responsible, the moment you will say go out, we will go out. Do you remember those words? So you build trust as a nation. You can't, narrative shaping is we can shape any narrative as we want. We can kill people and say we're all for peace. We can do Citizenship Amendment Act, where we make sure that Muslims of India do not get space to live and are not treated as first-rate citizens, and then say, oh no, this is all to give. So narrative, I'm not interested. I've spent too much time in politics and too much time in this region, and I feel too strongly about the need for this regional cooperation and normalization to waste my time in, saying, oh, we are all good brothers and love and peace and happiness. I want love, peace and happiness to happen. I want proof of that. You don't give me a proof when you do what you did in India, in Kashmir. You don't try and build trust. You are breaking trust. You do not do that when you send jets into my territory after 1971 for the first time. And by the way, for your information, the world did see, because a whole host of international journalists arrived at that place where India said terrorist camps were, and only saw 10 trees, and we called that environmental terrorism. So let's get real, for heaven's sake. Everything is possible, Rahul, to you. Everything is possible. But we have to just get out of this language. We have to get out of wanting to... And
see, we are going
really
in tangents now.
The Guruji to talk about the subject that he is an expert on, and tell us how can we...
That's actually, we are going in tangents.
Peace.
We are going in tangents, I
but
said.
on politics...
That's exactly, I would like it to just come out of the politics now. Let's see how we can develop...
meditation. I would love to know.
Absolutely, that is absolutely essential. See, that's where we can see that younger generation today are looking forward to work together, and how we can improve the economy, how we can improve in skill development training programs, how can there be more exchange of IT, for example, and technology, and we can achieve a lot. I see the youth of South Asia as very resilient. We have done many youth leadership training programs in Sri Lanka, in Bangladesh, also in Pakistan we used to do several years back. So I see the youths are looking forward for something new, and they are for peace. They are for, building trust, and that we need to keep doing. Never mind, even if it's collapsed in the past 10 times, but we can't just stay there. We have to move forward, and it may appear to be very rosy. I mean, you have to dream. You cannot say, oh, this is all just dream, it's not reality. Unless you conceive it as a dream, you will never move in that direction.
But Shri, whether it's Dawood Ibrahim, Masood Azhar, Syed Salahuddin, the minister doesn't see those as being issues. And therefore, how do we find a way forward? She says, speak a different language. What is this different language if the reality that's writ very large on the wall isn't accepted as being real?
That minister will have to answer that question. She has to say, she has to ponder on that. She has to see what is that each one of us have to improve on. What the leaders have to stand up and say.
Because what we're seeing, Minister, now, for example, in Pakistan, if I were to shift focus just for a moment to the western neighborhood, the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan is creating troubles for your government, and the Afghan Taliban government has said that they would not be okay with the Pakistani army staging any operations. So the same concerns that India has vis-a-vis terrorists harbored in Pakistan, the Pakistani state and the Pakistani army seem to have the same problems with terrorists being harbored in Afghanistan. So this is not just an India-Pakistan problem.
Absolutely.
This is a problem. And Taliban thinks of their terrorists in quite the same vocabulary as you think of terrorists who are operating against India.
Look, I think every situation is far more complex than it can be put into 2 sentences, but I can say we have concerns on from within our eastern border also about the upstaging or the staging of terrorism in Pakistan, and as a country which has lost 70,000 people in the last many years to terrorist activity, I can tell you that many strains linked to our eastern neighbor and the genesis of which outside land, sometimes within the country, and sometimes other countries have been used for that. I recently, weeks before coming here, the Lahore attack, we found evidence which has been shared with everyone about RAW having propagated that particular attack, right? As I said, Rahul, I think what I'm saying is simple. Pakistan has learned many lessons from the past. Okay, Pakistan is now on a trajectory which is towards progress and development on that particular count. Pakistan is moving towards a progressive Pakistan. Unfortunately, and I say this with a heavy heart, because you are my neighbor. If I feel that as a polity it's taking the wrong direction, it will come to burn my house also. Unfortunately, I feel what is happening in India is that a country which was living on secular credentials and had immensely benefited from it, coexistence of all religions, and had immensely benefited from it, is now making sure that this country is only habitable for a certain religious people only. Okay?
That's not true.
You see, you can say that, but you know Rana Ayub?
She's just one character.
Okay, she's just one character.
So there are so many people who don't like your government.
That freedom, freedom, rights of freedom, group in the US has put India as a very...
But one
so,
is this,
if I may finish.
No, but the Guruji made an important point. Look at the state of minorities in your country, which you refuse to
Rahul,
answer,
this is the difference. When you say this to me, I say my country is committed to improving the fate of those minorities, and we do laws every day to make sure that the minorities' lives...
Look at the percentage of minorities...
will be improved. In your country, you do legislation to make sure that their lives get worse. I am not at all saying that we are wonderful on that count and we have no problems and we don't need to. We have serious problems on that count. But the government and the people, and the government at least, is committed to dealing with those problems. And every day we try to build protective laws through the police and through legislation, protective walls through legislation to protect the minorities, not the other way around, right? So we, internal politics aside, I feel right now very bad for the fact that these 2 countries should hold this entire regional project back, okay? And isn't it unfair that our friend from Sri Lanka has been sitting here and you have chosen this opportunity only to do a...
I haven't.
No, please don't do that.
Just
allow him to also speak, because I'm really I'm done with this type of, we've had this. It's been years. I'm even too old for that. I'm sure there are people who've been doing it for 60 years. So please let's speak to him and perhaps ask him if he feels what can be done in terms of economic cooperation that he was talking about.
He did mention that. Now he's got the spotlight out on him, and he did mention that. And this whole idea that India, Pakistan are holding SAARC cooperation, or South Asian cooperation, hostage, from the tonality of this conversation and from your observations in general, do you think that's the way it's likely to stay?
Again, I think
because you mentioned the prospects of economic cooperation, and the minister very quickly said that can't be the starting point. Pakistan says that Kashmir should be the starting point.
I'm sorry, Rahul. No, please don't. I don't want to take his time. I did not say that at all. I
No,
said the
she has
reason he did.
contradicted herself many times.
How
She
is
said
that?
we should leave behind all the past and we should move ahead to the future, and she has said it.
Okay,
And
why
before
don't the
that
two
she
of
has
you have a
contradicted.
conversation? I think you should speak to each other.
I think she intends very good. She says now we all have to move forward, and we have learned a lot of lessons that she has said, admitted, and we should leave behind that. Now we should move ahead, and it's very obvious for the whole world that there is something that needs to be done, especially with the younger generation. We can't rewrite the history. History is already there. Now, learning lessons and moving ahead and seeing the whole world as Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, one world family, one humanity, and one progress for all. That's what we need to do.
Okay,
In
I'm going to
one
also
spirit.
throw this open to the audience for questions. If you have a question, please feel free to pipe in, and then we're happy to take that question from you. So if somebody has a question, just put your hand up and we'll take the question. Can I start with the gentleman over here? Would you bring a mic up, and then we can get a question out. This gentleman here?
Can I just speak like this?
You have a mic? Please go ahead.
Hi. So look, I'm an Indian, but I've been living in UAE now for almost 40 years. I do feel I have a perspective which is different from people in India or in Pakistan. And at least what I do see is, I mean, we employ 5,000 people globally, and we have lots of Indians, we have a lot of Pakistanis. What I would say is when people come from India to UAE, they have a perception of Pakistan. When people come from Pakistan to UAE, they have a perception of India. But I think within a couple of months, they're able to work happily with each other. So my request would be that this has now got to a stage over the last 40 years where it's become pretty intractable in terms of the issues. But we have to build on positives which exist between the two countries, not on the negatives, because you're not going to be able to change that. What is India's entrenched position, what is Pakistan's entrenched position, whatever be the reasons will remain. But we have to look at a few positives which are welcomed in both the countries.
Okay.
I don't mean states, I don't mean track two, but I mean picking on those goodwill points and working with them. Guruji, you are so popular in Pakistan, you're a good example, and similarly Pakistan has many people which are very popular in India.
Okay.
So I would focus on those
So
positives.
that's a observation. I'm going to go around, get that gentleman wanted to ask a question. Do you still have that question out? Which one? No? Okay, that gentleman wants to ask a question.
Thank you. My name is Pradeep. I'm from Nepal. I really interested on Pakistan and India, but I want to ask a question to Sri Lanka. I'm YGL. So our friends, especially Pakistan, Sri Lanka is in difficult situation. How can we support? Can you enlighten some of the things we can do for Sri Lanka from our side as a SAARC and friends of Sri Lanka?
I think already we've seen, as I mentioned earlier, when the going got really tough, I think India in particular stepped up, and it made a big difference because the situation could have got much worse mid last year. But that was more about bailing out the country, and we got fuel on credit and currency swaps and so on. But if I take a medium-term view, it's about sharing technology, skills, investment, because Pakistan has world-class companies, India has world-class companies that are leaders in so many areas, renewable energy, and so on. So I think, we are coming out of the crisis. There's help from all the multilaterals. You can see life is now quite normal. Of course, inflation has been high and it's painful, but day-to-day life has come back to normal. So as a business person, I think the opportunity is around sharing technology, knowledge, skills, and getting investment from the region. And we have seen it in the last so many years. Sri Lanka has Pakistani companies. Nepal is a big Nepali investor in Sri Lanka, investors from Bangladesh, and Indian companies, and big Indian investment. So I think we want to see that, to build on that. Yeah.
The lady there has a question. Go on.
Well, my name is Nigar. I'm YGL. I'm from Pakistan. I don't have a question, but congratulations that you moderated a session where I felt like that I'm watching an Indian news channel or a Pakistani news channel. That's what we actually watch every day. But I think it's very... I came to the conversation, to attend this conversation, to actually see what solutions we can find, you know, and we can talk about friendships and brotherhood and sisterhood, whatever. These are really shallow words, because if we are not touching upon the geopolitics of the region, the Kashmir issue, the lack of political will of both countries, we really cannot come to any conclusion. And with all due apologies, Guruji, people look up to you, but a spiritual leader should be spiritual and not a nationalist. You know, we come to you or hear you, not, you know, like listening to what the government is doing or what the leaders are doing. You know, I think it's the message of peace should be neutral, and it shouldn't be really, you know, favor any political leader or any national government or any government. So that's
I agree. I accept your comments, and you know, but you have to, as you said, peace cannot be just unless you come to geopolitical. You have again contradicted what you have said one sentence before. So I had to keep in facts in front. Now, I'm not favoring any party or any person. I'm, as I said, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. I believe in universal oneness and brotherhood. But when some facts are not correct, and it's my duty as a guru to put the facts right. You know, there are a lot of fake news floating around. You have to have fact checking, and that's what I did. And if there is some wrong in my facts, I'm ready to accept that also.
Gideon Rachman from the Financial Times.
Yeah.
I actually find it quite entertaining to see an Indian or Pakistani news channel, but I wanted to ask you about the role of China in all of this picture, because I wondered whether it's become an added complicating factor because India is increasingly wary of China. Pakistan is quite close to China. Sri Lanka's had a very complicated relationship with the whole alleged debt trap with China. So what role is the Chinese playing in all this?
Minister?
Guruji.
I think it's best you answer the question.
I think Guruji would be more of an authority.
No, you speak, you know more.
Okay, so basically, you know, I think you're absolutely right. I think that's a complexity, and I would hope, you know, that's why, allow me to say before I say that, I am intent never to attend a session like this again. I do not go to talk shows in Pakistan. I don't take phones from Indian callers, because I find it a waste of my time to be in a, you did this, we did this. Either we talk about structurally about things that can happen. I was not contradicting myself. So I was telling you in 2010, why were we the ones who said we would normalize trade? Because India was living by its commitments that it had made internationally, some of them at least, that it had made in Simla. But when you go and you reverse everything that you have committed to the people of Kashmir, to Pakistan and to UNSC, and say, yes, we have done broad light murder, but don't, you know, let's move on. Yes, we killed someone, but move on. It doesn't happen like that. Then you have to reverse back and make some amends. This is, and I'm not point scoring over here. I'm just stating facts as I see them as a realist. In order to move forward, some backward movement would be required. And then, if you open that door, you will find everybody and their godfathers in Pakistan running right into it, crashing it open. And I mean it. I know enough of my own country.
I think this is not the question.
Question was on China.
I was just clarifying because I was told that I had contradicted myself by making two different, because I was talking about that in 2010 and this now. And now...
Debt from China?
No, not only debt from China, the role of China. I think that was what the question was. I think you're absolutely right in for that to be perceived. Look, from where we sit, and I think I can speak of it for more or less the entire region barring India, China is generally seen by many countries in the Middle East who we talk deeply with, and many countries in our part of the world, as a source or a pillar of stability rather than chaos. I think this, when you do deep conversations with people who are in power in the region largely, barring India, as I said, is seen to be a pillar, a force of stability rather than chaos or instability. Now, it is viewed by the West right now in a very, very different light, clearly. Okay? And because of that, since 2010, you've had a proliferation of Indo-Pacific strategies. Containment of China is now a key objective, which is really there right in the center in many, many countries' policies. Okay, now, attached to that, what has happened With Russia and Ukraine, it becomes even a more complex situation. However, within all of that Indo-Pacific strategy, there's another problem, there's another issue. India is the net security provider within that containment of China pile, right? Or, story. Now that obviously for any country which feels threatened and has gone into wars with, has been subject to wars by that country, feels very threatened by that. So yes, that might be part of the, it might complicate things further, but I tell you, I will perhaps end by saying this clearly and categorically and repeating, at the cost of repeating myself, that we truly, truly believe that if in both countries you have statesmen at the same time who are willing to build a legacy of peace at the same time and not win an election cycle only, this is not an intractable problem as Stephen Cohen called it. It is not a conundrum that cannot be. It has been allowed to grow and propagate, and this narrative feeding has been done into the souls of our people and into our children. And when we had a chance, when we thought that we had a peaceful, a person that we could deal with on the other side who wanted peace, we made it, I will share this with you. In the Foreign Office, we made it a rule that no brief will carry an anti-India story, that no Prime Minister's comments and no Foreign Minister's comments. Do I say this today in the Foreign Office? No, I don't, because I think India has not given us the comfort that would be required to think that we can actually move
we're
forward.
at the fag end of this conversation at the World Economic Forum. Guruji has his hand up, wants to make a final observation, then we'll try and get a quick comment each and we'll wrap.
See, we need to move forward, and the way forward is to unite people, not just go on notching into the past wounds and flaring it up and justifying things of the past. I think now is the time to think and plan what we can do further, what we can achieve in the next 10 years, where we want to take our population, how we can improve bilateral trade, cultural exchange, cooperation in many different areas. These are the things that I thought that was the topic of this session. That's why I agreed to come, and I'm not interested in talking about the politics of it, but beyond politics, the world exists. We must know that. And there is economy, there is cultural exchange.
Okay.
These are things that we need to go
That
ahead.
is sagely advice. I'm told by the organizers that we're out of time on this conversation. Conversation on South Asia is always highly complex, and I think all of you sitting here watching on video would have had a good sense of why South Asia is a difficult conversation to have, and the differences came out very stark in the open. Hopefully, we can find ways of going forward. What that path is, we don't quite know just at this moment, but that's an opportunity then to set up another conversation. Krishna, thank you very much for joining us. Shishi, thank you. Minister Khar, thank you very much for having been a part of this.
News is about putting people first,
Just look at the queues right across.
about asking the right questions to those in power.
It takes no sides. माँ का दर्द एक दर्द कोई नहीं समझ सकता उस दर्द को.
It reveals, it heals.
Angry people came out on the streets.
Is this the kind of justice system we want in this country?
News is all heart and no hatred.
बिल्किस बानो आज क्या कहना चाहेंगी आप?
हमारे साथ जो हुआ है किसी के साथ भी नहीं होना चाहिए.
Experience the news. With me, Rajdeep Sardesai, only on India Today.
With the merger, is popcorn going to get cheaper?
A perennial question, right?
No, it's going to be affordable. It certainly will be affordable.
I will drive that point further. At a time when input cost pressures have been felt by most industries, I really want you to flesh that point out. Also from a social perspective, a lot of people saying, well, and there is legal certainty as an operator that we got from a recent order. But really, explain to our viewers, why is it so expensive? Are you making profits or are you covering your costs?
Well, I think our balance sheets speak for itself. The EBITDA margins at which we work in the 15 to 18% range. And as you very right